This is the third episode in this series where I'm making a keepsake box with an acorn inlay in the lid. And in this episode, we're going to use the lid that we produced in the previous episode and frame it with some of this sapele that I've got. The pieces have been cut to 2.5 centimetres wide and long enough to go around the frame of the lid. Rather than adding a handle, I want the handle to be part of the lid to this box. So for the handle section of the lid, I'm using a wider piece of wood and marking it out with the 2 centimetres standard width for the rest of the frame, and then adding on a curve to the front that I'll cut out on the bandsaw. I'm just using whatever I can find around the shed to mark out these circles or semicircles on this wood. So paint cans, lids of tubs, anything I can find. I'm trying different tools here to see what gives the best result. The sport shave works reasonably well, but it doesn't get into the corners, so I'll switch to a file in a second. And as you can see, I've made all the pieces oversized at this point. And the next step is to ensure that I've got a groove in these pieces to allow the lid to fit in. And although I'm happy with the shape of the handle to this box, it needs a little bit more refinement. So I'm going to add a slight chamfer or slight curve to the edge of the handle. And with the pieces now all prepared, it's a case of just testing them to make sure that the groove is wide enough to fit the lid. And in this case, it's very close, but the lid's slightly too tight. So I'll just take a little bit more off the lid to make it fit slightly better. With the pieces now cut to the right size, I need to add on the tenons to the ends of these two side pieces. These are effectively partial bridle joints in that they're exposed on the end. Now, because we're using the groove we created as the mortise, it's important that the tenon produced is the same width. So the tenon and the groove are the same width once the piece has been cut off. And with the pieces all prepared and now fitting well, they all need sanding ready for gluing together. And here I'm just adding in a little bit of white spirit just to show the grain and to highlight any of the sanding areas that I may have missed. And now I can have a go at the first full test fitting to make sure everything fits correctly. The pieces are quite a snug fit, so it does take a little bit of manoeuvring to get them into position, but that's really what I'm looking for here. Something that will go together and come apart, but have a little bit of resistance rather than being loose. And then before I get to the stage where I'm gluing the lid together, I'm just checking that it will go together and be square, because it's at this stage I can still adjust it. Once I've added the glue, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. And so it's time to add the glue. I'm not using a lot of glue, I'm just gluing the tenons and part of the shoulder and then clamping it all up. And now it's clamped up, I'm working fairly quickly to measure the corners to ensure that it's been put together square. If the measurements are the same, then it will be square enough for the box lid. Of course, another way of doing this is to get something you're confident is a 90-degree corner and check the frame on the inside, and that should also be 90. And at this stage I decide to finish the acorn rather than waiting until it's been glued into the surface of the box. I think this way I've got a better chance of getting to the lower parts of the acorn that might be difficult to reach in the recess. I've given this plenty of time to dry, and now clamping it in the vise, I'm going to take down the edges of the lid. I've left them to protrude on purpose so that I can take this step to produce a smooth surface. And when the finish dry on the acorn, I can now glue it into the lid of the box. I'm putting some movement onto the acorn to allow the glue to tack up. This will hopefully help it not move during the gluing process. And a little bit of weight on the acorn will help it glue to the box lid. Doesn't need to be a lot of weight. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching the construction of this box lid. In the next episode, we should be covering the construction of the box itself. So like and subscribe, and if you hit the notifications bell, then hopefully you'll be informed when the next episode comes out.